Okay, thank you, folks. Once again, there are 2 open seats on the East Hampton Town Board, and we will have 3 candidates on the stage. So please welcome Ian Calder-Piedmonte, J.P. Foster, and Cate Rogers. And thank you all for being here tonight. As we did with the first debate, we will go in alphabetical order for openings. Each of you will have 2 minutes to give an opening. Same format where we will go into questions with no time limits on questions and answers. Please keep your answers as brief as possible. But if you have a redirect or something you'd like to add, please just catch my eye, and I'll direct traffic best I can. So with that, I believe Ian will go first with the opening. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, these lights are bright.
Yes.
Also, I've got a strange name, and I've learned that through my life, and now I realize I'm early in the alphabet, too, because I go first at all of these, which is great. Anyway, my name's Ian Calder-Piedmonte. I'm running for East Hampton Town Board for re-election on the Democratic and Working Families line. And I'm running, people ask me why I'm doing it, and quite frankly, because I love this town, I love this community, and I love this job. The last 2 years serving has been the honor of my life, and I'm hoping to be able to continue that. I have a history of government service, but I really came to know this community as a farmer. I'm a farmer in my other life. And, as a small, organic farmer, had great support from the community. And that's how I fell in love with this place. First through the work itself, and then through East Hampton's natural beauty. And then, again, from the community itself who supported me. And this is an opportunity to give back. I've also been on the board of LTV, actually. Love this place. Served on the board of Edible School Gardens. And so when I was asked to serve on the planning board in 2012, although I didn't know a lot about planning necessarily, I knew that I wanted to serve and give back to, again, the community that's given me so much. And so I took that job, learned a lot about planning, and really came to love it, and served for 12 years. And that was in January 2024, I was asked to serve on the town board to replace Cate Gonzalez's seat. And wasn't something I necessarily had planned, but it's something I knew I wanted to do, and the minute I got into that seat, I loved it and wanted to continue. I think our job in the town board is simple. It's to protect East Hampton. We live in a wonderful place. I was driving here looking at the sunset, the same sunset that I see from my farm field sometimes, and you just know how special it is. I think our job is to protect that, the natural resources, the beauty, and the environment, but also equally important is to protect the community itself. I think we have to, we live in a strange place with, disparity of wealth, and it's very important that we protect our community, our working families, our small businesses.
That is 2 minutes, Ian, so if you can just wrap up. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I'll wrap up. I'm sorry that was too long. Hopefully we'll get into affordable housing because that was my next thing, but it would be an honor to continue to serve, and I hope I have your vote.
Oh, we'll get into affordable housing. Don't worry about that. Who would go next now? Let me see.
JP.
JP.
Well, thank you to Joe and Gavin and Press News Group LTV, which I am actually also, in full disclosure, the chairman.
Oh, bring your mic a little
Can I
closer
hear me?
just so everybody can hear you.
Is that better?
Tilt it up. Oh, is it not on?
Could you hear me or you just didn't care?
It's on. Speak into it directly.
Is it on?
No. Oh, you want
Oh,
to?
hang on.
You can take mine.
Hang on.
Jason's job, don't worry.
There
All
you
right.
go.
That better?
We're going to restart your 2 minutes.
All right.
JP. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Okay, so my name is J.P. Foster, and I want to first start off by thanking the Press News Group, Gavin, Joe, for hosting LTV, which I, in full disclosure, am the chairman of the board for LTV currently now. So I figured I'd get all that out of the way right in the beginning. My family goes back in East Hampton between 350 and 400 years, so I've got some pretty deep roots here in East Hampton and Southampton. I'm very proud of that. I served on the East Hampton School Board. I'm in my 13th year now, and it's 12th year as its president. And I've learned a tremendous amount about people, about the community. You think and then you see a different side of it in your different jobs and situations. I just retired myself after 35 years working for East Hampton Village. I managed the 911 system for the town and village, and I did the first responders, fire, EMS, police department from Sag Harbor to Montauk. have a lot of deep knowledge about our area, about public safety, about our students, and about our education process here in East Hampton. You know, I've got a lot of things that I've done. I've also been on the planning board. I served with Ian for 2 years, a long time ago. So there's a lot there, and I just want to bring my leadership experience. I want to bring my ability to collaborate with people, my ability to work with people. And, you know, I will say this, when I walk in the door, sometimes I walk out with a different take on life. On whatever the issue may be, you can change my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Cate Rogers, 2 minutes.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Gavin, and the press group for providing this forum, and also LTV for being able to see us and hear us in such a beautiful place. So I'm Cate Rogers. I'm running for re-election to the East Hampton Town Board. I'm a council member and currently deputy supervisor. I came to East Hampton 20 years ago full-time, although my first introduction to East Hampton was as a child. The minute my parents made any kind of money, they bought a little boat, and we came to Sag Harbor. And I fell in love with it then. Although it's changed so much from driving down the road and going potato farm, potato farm, potato farm, to where we are now, what really keeps us together is our community and the values that we share. Our love for our natural resources, our love for our environment, and the desire to preserve and protect those with all of our hearts. So for me, my experience ranges from, I worked in my family's business for most of my life. We ran a 7,500-seat arena that was an entertainment arena and sports arena in Comac. Later, when the business went soft, the touring industry went soft, we transitioned into Suffolk County's largest flea market. We had over 240 vendors. I was in charge of security, managing the market, looking at the issues both from the vendor's point of view and the 30,000-foot view to what's best for the market. And unknowingly, that was a really good experience, job experience to do the job that I do now. So I'm fortunate to have had that experience. In the town, I've volunteered for many of our town committees: Spring CAC, Nature Preserve Committee, Energy Sustainability Committee, was the founder of the Solarize program, Win with Win, which brought the South Fork Wind Farm online, and I've always been involved in community service. It's
That is
an
2
ethic
minutes,
of
yeah.
my family, and I look forward to talking about more. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much. Just a very brief correction, just because I heard it twice. It's actually the Express News Group. I just
Oh,
want to.
I'm
Yeah, it's okay.
sorry.
It's okay.
I know I
no
got it
harm
wrong.
done, but I feel like I will get yelled at by my publisher if I don't point that out. So it is Express News Group. Let's start. You know, we have a challenger who is flanked by 2 incumbents. So I will start with you, Cate, because my mother raised a gentleman.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to
I'll
know
take that.
from the incumbents, what is your proudest accomplishment in this last term? And JP, I will ask you, what do you think is the biggest shortcoming of the town board in this last term? So Cate, I'll start with you.
Do we have to only list one?
Well, you can answer as you choose.
Okay, thanks. My proudest accomplishments in the town is supporting the legislation to increase housing affordability, obviously. As Ian will note, and what his dedication to affordable housing, I share that with him as we lose working families across the board. So that's devastating to see when you know that my son's friends are living with their parents. They're all working. They all have good jobs, yet they can't afford to live here. So helping with the housing affordability and change those regulations is one of my proudest accomplishments. In doing that also, lowering the maximum house size in town and the gross floor area formula to take some of that luxury development, which is also one of the causes of housing affordability issues in the town, and transferring that use to the increasing density for affordable housing. So these are very important to me, both to protect the community and to preserve our natural resources, our biodiversity, and also everything that I do for coastal resiliency. So bringing the $600,000 grant to the town is essential. I'm endorsed by the Long Island Federation of Labor, by the Democratic and Working Families parties, and by Eleanor's legacy, because I share the values of those organizations, and that's what I bring to the table. So these are my accomplishments. Also creating the first composting program, and we've reduced 23,000 pounds of food scrap waste from our waste stream. Helps our environment and saves our taxpayers money. Win-win.
Okay, Ian, I'm going to let you go next.
Yeah, well, my proudest accomplishment as a town board member, I'm the liaison to the housing department, and that's great because I think affordable housing is our biggest issue, our biggest crisis in East Hampton. I've passed legislation first to increase the density for senior affordable housing developments to make it more economically viable to construct affordable housing. I then expanded that to all. I say I introduced it, the whole board supported it obviously because they passed. Expanded that to all affordable housing projects. I've introduced recently legislation for affordable multiple residence, and I think that is a significant legislation, not only because it allows for affordable housing to be constructed, if passed, on smaller lots, because we don't have that many lots of 3 acres or more, which our current code says you have to use. Not only because it allows for affordable housing on smaller lots, but also because I think it opens the door for private money and individuals to help us solve this problem. I'm proud of the work we've done as a town board and as a government, but I think our job is also to legislate, to create opportunities for individuals, businesses, and others to help us create that, help us create solutions and solve that problem. I've introduced other pieces of legislation. We started a first-time home buyers down payment assistance. I'm now advocating for an ADU construction loan assistance. So I think I've, in less than 2 years, been very successful, and there's a lot more work to do. I know you said one. The other thing I'll say is, I took 2 angry calls today from people from the public, and I'm proud of the fact that I always return them. One of them was a frequent caller. I knew what I was getting into, but I still called back. Another one was somebody with a new problem, and I think that our job is, as the clerks indicated, to be, ambassadors to the public. I embrace that, and I'm proud of having done that to myself.
JP, as a challenger, you don't have that record to talk about. So let's talk about what you saw from this town board and what you think could have been done.
Okay, well, I'm glad you didn't limit it to one thing as well. Thank you. So I'll start off with basic government function. And I think that if you look at where we are today, something that affects everyone probably in this room and in this town is our building department. And I think that it's all of our departments, to be truthful, but the building department's probably the most critical that we have today. And, when you have the issue of not being able to get either a building permit or a certificate of occupancy in a timely manner, I think there's really some serious issues. I can speak to my record, and, being part of the East Hampton School District, and, I'm looking out at some people here that I've worked with over the years, and we may have disagreed on some things at times, but we were able to move things forward. We were always able to collaborate, come to a consensus, and move forward, and I think we did some of it really well. Frankly, we have approximately 375 employees that work for East Hampton School District. And, we have retirements every year, we have, replacements, we have all those natural things that you have, but I don't have people necessarily leaving, walking out, or, jumping ship to, we'll have teachers that will leave. We have people that, are commuting, so they got a job closer to where they live. But, and back to the building department, I think when you look at where we are today, you have to ask yourself, how do you let those people go that left? And, the chief building inspector or principal building inspector, however you want to classify it, is one of those very things that I think we really need to talk about. Secondly, even if that may happen, what's your backup plan? Your principal building inspector goes on vacation. Does the place stop? Who's your second in charge that picks up the ball and keeps it moving forward? Because no one knows when someone's going to suddenly leave, retire. Things like that do happen. It's not what you're looking to have happen. I know that, and I understand that, but that's what's happened. So, I go back to my days on the school board. We knew Rich Burns was leaving. He was our, beloved superintendent. Everybody loved Rich. And I look out to some of my fellow board members that are sitting in the audience tonight, and we looked at each other. We said, we have to have a plan. What's our plan? And our plan was, we have Adam Fine. And, he was there. He was ready for the task. When I ran for school board, it's something I said. There was a bit of a revolving door. It was slowing down when I came in. So I can honestly say that it wasn't, I'm not here to take credit for fixing it. Because it was still somewhat happening, and we had a few turnovers for sure, but with 375 people, you're going to. But key positions, I think that's one of the things that we really need to have a conversation about. And I'm not here to criticize my 2 opponents. I know them, I know who they are, I get it, but something's wrong. Something's wrong in our system. something's wrong in our process. Those are things that I think we need to address immediately. I look at, I know everybody wants to make me the villain over the GFA law that Cate was talking about. My point is process, okay? We talk about process, and, when you had the GFA law that turned, I think it changed in 2017, somewhere in that neighborhood, it went from 1,600 square feet and 12% down to 1,600 square feet and 10%. So you had two moves there. One happened first, then of course in 2017 it happened again. Well, the next logical step to me would be, well, if you're going to try to fix this, they closed some loopholes, things that needed to be done, terrific, I commend them on that. But we went from 1,600 and 10% down to 1,500 and 7%. The logical step to me would be stay at 1,600 and go to 8. Compromise a bit, see where it is. We know we can adjust it. We've done it now 2 times already. So if it needs to be done, do some smaller steps, baby steps. I think, I know things are difficult to move in town government or any government. It's glacial. So when you get an opportunity to do something, sometimes maybe you go a little too far. And I think that's how I look at it. I think everyone agrees we want to preserve our natural beauty. We want to preserve our town the way it was, and the way it'll never be the way it was from what I remember it. I grew up here. It's never going to be that again. I recognize that. But if we don't have the natural beauty, we'll lose everything we have, and I won't want to be here either. So I'm not trying to lose it. I'm not trying to get rid of it. And I'll say one further thing. When you look at the bigger houses, speaking as a school board member, those are fantastic when they collect taxes for our children and give us a benefit that our kids get to go to a great school. They have great facilities. They have all these things. And I think that's something to be concerned about as well.
JP raised a couple of topics here, and we're going to get into those really specifically. Let's start with affordable housing. The town has, I believe, a little more than $20 million in CHF money to spend right now. So I want to talk about what you think the town should do specifically to use that money as efficiently as possible. And Ian, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, that fund, first of all, is fantastic. I'm grateful to the voters for approving a 0.5% real estate tax.
$20 million plus is a lot of money to gain in just a couple of years.
It is, but it's not as much as you think when you face the size of that problem. So it's not like we can go and construct all the affordable housing we need with $20 million. So I think that there's some programs that we've already implemented, the first-time home buyers down payment assistance program, which has been very successful, and the people who applied for that are the exact people we all, say we really want to keep in our community. So I'm very proud of that. I would love to use that money for ADU construction assistance, and then the biggest thing, and then individual project as well. Last year we gave out the first round of grants to various projects to support their affordable housing developments. But the other largest thing is land banking. The resource that we don't have a lot of is land. And so I think constantly looking for opportunities of where we can purchase land to develop in future years. It seems like a lot of money, but I'll tell you, once you get on the inside, it doesn't go nearly as far as you think. And that's why I think, in addition to, we can't only rely on that, we also have to do creative legislation to open the door for other people to help us construct affordable housing.
JP, what do you think the town should be doing with CHF money?
So I'm also glad we have it. I think it's a tool that's much needed. I think it's a way to keep our, our family here, our children here. Listen, there's no silver bullet for housing. And listen, if it was, we wouldn't be talking about it for the last 40 years or 50 years, whatever it's been. It's been a long time. Is it an easy fix? No, it's not. I think that, one of the things I would like to see, I'd like to see a priority given. Other townships have it for volunteer first responders. And at this point, I think I would limit it to volunteer first responders. Other townships offer it. And basically what it means is you get put on a preferred list. So when housing becomes available, there are people that are giving back to our community. I think we should give back to them. So I think that would be a great start. I think when the CPF was first started, the money that came out was leveraged. They borrowed some money against it, and nothing says you can't do that with the housing money that we're collecting today. So those things should be explored. I think another thing, low-hanging fruit that I look at, the ADUs, they're pretty limited in the hamlets as to how many you can build. And I think that's something that maybe should be exempt from the GFA. It's something that should be at least looked at. Come up with a sensible plan where you can do that, since it's such a small, if we've lost so much density and we've reduced it so far, a good place maybe to put it is in some sort of, and we always say affordable housing or we say low income housing, however you want to craft it. affordable in East Hampton is really, not the case. It's not affordable. And even the affordable rents are not affordable. You still can't save money, and there's no fix to that. And there's no one's fault. It's our economy. It's our scale of economy. And it's expensive to be there. But that's where I think I would like to see some things started, is there.
Kathy? Cate, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So everything that Ian said and much of what JP says in terms of providing affordable housing is part of the overall solution. But in my mind, when you're crafting solutions, you just can't look at how you put back things into the system. You have to look at what the causes are. You have to evaluate why we're at this point where our kids can't afford to live here, where teachers and police officers can't afford to live here. And right now, the average house price in East Hampton is $1.6 million. So if you look at what it would take for someone to be able to afford our housing stock, you're talking about at least $400,000 to $500,000 a year, so that remains at less than 30% of their total income. These are outstanding salaries. This is not sustainable. So in order to cool down the market, both for short-term rentals and for luxury homes, you have to take that into perspective when you're looking at how to deal with affordable housing. It's not just enough to build it, to open opportunities, but you have to look what's happening in the neighborhoods and what's keeping people out from being able to afford a place to live here. So when you're taking away those 800, 1,000 square foot homes off of our small lots and maximizing your investment to over 3,000 square foot, no one can afford that who's local. So the idea that you solve something by creating new things, but not looking at the reasons why this is happening to begin with, kind of defies logic to me.
Ian, you want to add?
I wanted to, is when Ian's done.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted, I wanted to comment on what JP said about, first responders and volunteers' preference. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I mean this with all due respect. It's just not that simple. And there are fair housing laws. And, the county recently passed something that I've been actively working on with our planning department and attorney's office. I'm confident we can get something done, but it's not as simple as just saying, give priority. These laws are being challenged all over the place, and so I think it's important, to do that. And again, I'm wholeheartedly in support, but I think it's also important to do it in a way that, I value the process and do it in a legal way that if it is challenged, it's upheld. I think passing something that feels good, if it doesn't actually achieve the intended result, doesn't do us any good. But JP and I are in full agreement upon that, and I've been actively working on it.
JP?
Just to add to that, I will agree. Nothing's easy. It's government. It's not supposed to be easy. I think that's the way they designed it. I don't know why, but it is. It's here to sometimes work against us and frustrate us. But I think if other towns do have it, maybe being challenged on it, but I'd rather be challenged than not do it. And I think that's how I look at that side of it. And as far as affordability, if we make the smaller lots in, I'm going to use Springs as an example. They have a lot of undersized lots. They have a lot of urban renewal maps, properties, some in Northwest. I'd like to see a study in 10 years to see how much it lowered our prices. Does anybody here think our prices are going to lower if you change the size of a house? I mean, it's East Hampton. It's the South Fork of Long Island. It's ocean proximity property. There just is no more of it. And the fact is we're not going to, it's not going to go down. If it changed 100,000, if it did that, and I don't feel that it would, and I look at a lot of real estate professionals that I see in the audience here, raise your hand if you think it's going to go down. I don't see that. I think that the house size will be smaller, and I think there'll be families that are affected that didn't sign up for that, but that's what they got. And I'm not saying we didn't have an issue that needed to be looked at. It did. But I think it just needed a little more thought and a little more sensibility. And I'm not saying that you didn't feel it was, and I know you did because you're very passionate about it, but it also hurt, I think, a lot of local people. And listen, the big houses, they're still going to build big houses. They're still going to build them. We're not going to stop that. And I'm not sure that that's anything I'm even interested in stopping, but that's, that's
So,
me.
Cate, let's roll into the conversation about the GFA law. When you hear that criticism, what's your response?
Well, the criticism of the thought and the process is not what matches the reality. We took 22 months to do the research, collect the data, The folks that were on that committee were the chief building inspector, the director of planning, the director of natural resources, town attorneys. I had 2 zoning board members, one whose family is in construction business for decades here in East Hampton, and one who's great at data collection and had a really good understanding of what's happening from a data point of view. We had town attorneys on. I know this is an issue that many areas out here are grappling with, but the idea of no, as a matter of fact, hurting people's investments, I acknowledge that in August, according to Realtor.com, the prices of houses in East Hampton rose. But that wasn't just the only issue that we were facing. That was one of the issues. What we're facing is a total loss of our biodiversity in our town. We've lost our scallop fishery. We're losing what makes East Hampton, East Hampton. And if we're going to increase density for affordable housing, which I'm completely in favor of, then that use has to come from somewhere. And when you're looking at houses that now were being built over 10,000 square foot on every lot, and of course, we're not counting the finished lower level or a 600 square foot garage. We're not counting accessory structures. We're counting primary structure GFA. So when that trend the houses kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is what we saw over analyzing building permits since COVID. There's a lot in the town that has changed because of the impacts of COVID. And you can't just say, I'm not going to do anything about them. It's funny, we talk about government glacial, but then if you make a change, it happened too fast. But we had 45 hours of public presentations to the public, 2 public hearings. We had public comment that was huge. And by our count, 4 to 1 were in favor of these zoning code changes. So I took that, and yes, I represent the community. I care about the community. I believe our working families and our environment are the backbone of our economy. We talk about resignations and talk about town staff. Right now, we have 10 openings. And we have 316 year-round people working here. But it is difficult to retain staff because nobody can afford to live here. But it's not just the town. It's all the businesses that I hear from. It's people that are involved in the economy in this town. Go down and talk to the folks at the Montauk Chamber of Commerce and see how hard it is to retain staff because no one can live here. And like building for affordable housing, I just have to think we have to take a look at what kind of community we want to be. And I'd like to see, as Ian has said over and over, a complete community. So anything that I could do to help that, I'm in favor of.
Ian, you ended up voting against the code changes that brought in tighter restrictions on the size of houses. Why, and what should voters understand that to mean for you moving forward on this topic?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm glad that you asked. First of all, I think it's important to recognize there were 2 rounds of this. There was a first round where there were some loopholes closed that I voted for. And then there was a second round that was geared towards the formula and GFA. And by the way, the minute we started talking about closing loopholes, I said, we're talking about GFA here. Let's wrap the whole conversation into one. We split it up, and that's okay. But I voted against the GFA because of some specific details. I do want to say that I think that JP and even people who were against that change, I think recognize that we do need to protect against overdevelopment, and I feel strongly that we do.
Agreed.
I think that in terms of the process, I want to say that I heard a lot about people saying, oh, this has been sort of secret and not public. And so when we started talking about this, I know a group of builders, real estate architects and surveyors got together who had their own comments, and I actively engaged them, as did the rest of the town board. There were some important changes in that first round, including exempting basements from GFA, which I was a supporter of. There was another subtle rule about surveying because of people taking advantage of manipulating the ground to build bigger houses. And we were able to say on flat lots, there's a weighted survey particular parts to avoid having people on small lots have to pay for an expensive survey. I was supportive of that. So I think that there was a process that made some effective changes to that first round that got incorporated through process, through outreach, and frankly, I think I took a leadership role in making that happen. Now, the last phase in terms of GFA, again, I think everybody would agree, even that same group I'm referring to, agree that there should be some reduction in GFA. At the end of the day, I voted against it, and I think everybody who voted for it had all of the best intentions. I voted against it because we were allowing a garage to be constructed on a small lot, and I heard from several constituents who felt that this was going to hurt them. We were allowing for something in the same footprint to have a garage, but not an extra bedroom for your fourth child or whatever. And I just couldn't look those people in the eye and say, you know, I support that. That said, I supported a lot of it, and I do think that the process throughout it was fair.
JP, help the voters understand where you are on this. Do you agree that the town should take some action to limit house sizes?
Without a question.
So is it just a question of,
It's a question of process, and then it's the outcome of the process. Because the process, I don't think was, listen, when we sat to do our bus, you know, our transportation facility, we had facilities meetings, we had regular board meetings. We did public hearings because that's a formality that you do have to do. And I'm not saying it's a formality and I didn't really want to do it. I'm saying that you have to call it specifically a public hearing. But in the process, there was a lot of conversation that went on between the neighbors. There was yelling matches that went on. Let's be honest, okay? There were. But at the end of the day, we came up with a solution because we yelled at each other. You know what I mean? We talked. We sat down across from each other and we said, listen, this is wrong and this is why. And we heard it. And I think everyone that sits here's intentions are good. It's not about intentions. Intentions are wonderful. But the outcome, I think, could have been better. And I think it could have been more inclusive. I think when you look at the small lots that were affected, they would have been affected a little bit less, and maybe they could have gotten along with it, and let it play out for a little while, then go back and say, well, all right, you know, we thought it was going to have this effect, and we thought that this would happen, and it didn't. Let's do it again. Let's take another nibble at this and reduce it down a little further. That's my point. I'm not here to say I wanted 12% when we had 10. I didn't ask for that. No one's ever asked me that question. But no, if you want to know the answer to the question, I wasn't looking for 12 when they had 10. I was looking for maybe 8 or 7.5 or 9, something that was a compromise. And let people kind of, you know, let that sink in for a little while. Let's see what it does. We're an ever-changing community, and we're always going to be. So take a small step, take a baby step. It's not going to hurt you to do that. And that's my point.
Cate, you championed this. Do you worry about the staying power of this zone change?
Well, of course I do, because I feel like part of this election, you know, I'm the candidate, but really what this is a referendum on is whether we're going to protect the neighborhoods, protect the character of our neighborhoods, protect our natural resources, our biodiversity, protect what's always been the character of East Hampton, or we're just going to look at it from an economic point of view. So I do think that there's two things. And again, I'm not saying that economics isn't important. I'm a businesswoman. So, you know, making a profit was really what I was raised on. You know, it would be a crappy dinner if you did something that would hurt that family dinner. But we had so much input that I just can't fathom what more input we needed. We had a group of industry professionals that we were working with and that we met and put everything before. The actual recommendation for the gross floor area is not what we passed. There was a compromise on that. The group recommended 7% and 1,300, and the town board compromised to 7% and 1,500. Also, when you evaluate and take note and count the small lots and the sizes of the existing houses, we're looking at the actual problem. Traditionally, on our small lots, there were very, very small houses. You look at Maidstone, you talk about Springs. Maidstone, you're talking about 800 square foot, 900 square foot cottages. Those properties, they can expand by 98% under the current GFA. They could add another 1,000 square foot. So again, I know there's folks that are against this. I'm very happy to hear that everybody realizes that we had to do something, that houses were too big, and the difference is what someone may think the numbers are. But our numbers didn't come out of insular, what we thought, or my passion, or anybody else's passion. We changed, we studied, we invited people to meet with us. One of the reasons why we didn't have builders and surveyors, architects on the, except for John Whelan, who of course worked in an architect's office, was because our town staff works during the day, and so does the folks in these industries. They couldn't sit there for 2 hours every Monday and go through things. So we accommodated. I met them in my office in the evening. We had group meetings between the Zoning Code Amendments Work Group and the business professional groups. We ran things by. We saw where we disagreed. And at the end of the day, we presented this to the public. The public overwhelmingly supported the original code change, but then the town board, hearing that some people were nervous about things and some people had other comments, changed the recommendation and compromised on those issues. So I don't know how a process would play out any better in any other way.
Go ahead,
Just wanted to respond. I don't look at this election as a referendum on this one issue. There are several issues, and I think I named a few of them as we sat here. But I will tell you this. If I'm elected, anybody that has a concern, anyone that wants to have a voice at the table for any major change we're having in this town, will get it. And as a matter of fact, if we can't accommodate them during the day, well, let's do it at night when they can come.
Well, staff can't work at night, Cate. They have unions.
Well, listen, we have overtime. Listen, if it's that important, I work for a municipality.
But we did meet with those folks. We accommodated them, that group. So what I just
Well,
said you didn't seem to get that.
No, I
Because
don't
what
think
I
what
said
you're.
is we work closely
I don't think.
with that
Well,
group.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think you're getting that people wanted to be heard and they weren't.
Well,
And I
there
think
was
that's
there
how
was
I see it.
The record public comment for any.
I'm not
our-
talking about public
our
comment. Listen,
platform-
I
well,
understand. I'm not talking
public comment
about
is
that.
people coming and talking to us.
Yes, listen, that's public
The
comment.
amount of email that we received, and again, with all of this largest engagement in the town's history, over 22 months, we still ended up 4-1 in favor of the zoning code amendment that we
JP,
put forth.
take a couple seconds and
Yeah.
make your
No,
point.
my point to the public is this, whichever side you sit on, if there's an issue that we're addressing in East Hampton, the town of East Hampton, and you have a concern, let's have a conversation about it. A public hearing is wonderful, and at the end, as you come along, you want to do a public hearing to begin the process of codifying it, wonderful. I don't have an issue with that. At the same time, the process being totally flushed and worked out, let's have an actual sit-down conversation from all sides that want to be heard, whether it's during the day or at night. Listen, I work for a municipality. I went to meetings at night. They paid me for it. It's just what happens. And you know what? If we have to have it during the day and we alternate, whatever you have to do, my point is we need to make every effort to make everyone be heard. That's all.
I'm sorry, I think I misspoke when I said it was public hearings. We had 14 work sessions, which is where we introduced things to the public.
I understand that. Listen,
I just wanted to be clear that it
that's
wasn't
okay.
just
And I
public
understand that. Listen, I know you guys did that, and I understand it. I just don't think it was enough. That's how I feel. I think there should have been a broader conversation as just that, a conversation.
JP and Ian, let me ask you a very simple question. If you're elected to the town board, will you revisit this legislation?
Would
JP?
if possible, I would. I would
Okay.
revisit it.
Ian?
Well, I think the code, I believe that the code's a living code, and we should always try to make it better. So, of course, but that doesn't mean repeal it and do away with it.
I'm not trying to throw it away.
There are some changes that I would have made, and I suggested these. I also just want to say to JP's point about being open and listening, I think that my record shows that I do that, and I don't think he's targeting me here necessarily, but I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find somebody who's more accessible than I am. And I talked about all sorts of issues, and I think this is a really good example of it, in restaurants, on the street, on the telephone. I heard from all types of people, and I don't think you can hear anybody and on both sides, by the way, people who are strong proponents and strongly against it. So I just want to make sure that JP's comment isn't formulated to say that we need to fix that. I think that one of the things I've tried to make clear to everybody, whether it's town staff, anybody from the public, is that my door, my phone is always open.
So let me ask you, Ian. Cate says that the process was adequate. JP says it wasn't. Where do you fall on that continuum?
I think the process was adequate. I think that, again, when this came to the town board and Cate and the working group brought it to us, ironically, sometimes you bring something to a work session and people say, oh, it's a big secret. Well, the whole point of the work session is to make it public. And yes, there's some work that goes into it before then, so you have something to talk about. But when it did, and I heard feedback from the people who opposed these changes, I sought them out. I sought them out. They got included. Again, I pointed out 2 important changes to that first round of changes that were made. We implemented those. And again, I think I took a leadership role in making sure we talked to all sides. I believe that whatever my position is, whatever our position is in the town, we've got to seek out the best counter argument and make sure that gets addressed. So people may say the windup wasn't fair. In the end, it was certainly a fair process. I think people who didn't, and again, I voted against the second part of that, but it's not that I didn't, have my chance to say my piece. I hope anybody who watched those meetings, we weren't sitting in the back yelling at each other. I'm not a yeller. But I do stand pretty firm, and I was pretty comfortable saying that I disagreed about this or that, and got into the nuance. And again, there were a lot of meetings about this. I said my piece. In the end, I didn't get the legislation that I wanted. With all pieces of legislation, nothing should be permanent, but we should make careful changes to everything, and I think this is one as well.
Let me change gears a little bit. This is a related topic, though. You talked about staffing issues. The town has tried to address that in recent years by increasing compensation. It's not really working as well as you probably hoped it would. What is the end game there? Because at a certain point, and Cate, I'll start with you. At a certain point, I feel like there has to be a limit to how high you can go, and it is very difficult to make a living wage in East Hampton town right now for your employees. But how far do you go, and where do you know where that limit is?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one we grapple with all the time, and there's other things that you can do. We raised we have civil service to deal with, and we raised salaries over my tenure to the top limit that we possibly could. We also instituted remote work policies so people can work from home. We are advocating for the South Fork commuter connection so that people who can't afford to live here anymore, but also a lot of those folks grew up here, can make back here and not have to sit in the torture of traffic for so many hours. I've supported all of the raises, over and above raises for our unions, and really appreciate the difficulty that it is to work here. I also want to put a plug for the town. Again, out of 316 positions, full-time, year-round workers, we have 10 openings. So I don't know what ratio that is, and I don't know how that compares to other municipalities, but I don't think it's a massive exodus from the town. Because we also have one of the best healthcare policies that anyone could possibly have. And it's a big reason why we have multi-generational families working in the town. It's a reason why we have siblings working in the town. So when you really take a look at our workforce with just 10 openings currently, I think that tells the story of a place people want to work. Do I notice across everything that I do and all the places that I go and people that I talk to, a generalized anxiety across our entire community, a tension? Yes, but I'm not sure that, I don't believe, not only not sure, I believe that's what's happening on a national level. That everyone, everywhere, is more tense and anxious than before, because people are afraid of losing their Medicaid. We have community members that are afraid to leave their houses. They're afraid to go pick up their children. So these tensions that we're seeing, besides the rising cost of food, the rising cost of construction materials, the rising cost of everything, and the uncertainty of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, we're all anxious. And I see it in our staff. It's heartbreaking, but I also see it everywhere I go in the community. I see businesses, the backbone of our community, right? The economy of our community struggling with these same issues that we're struggling.
Go ahead, Ian.
Me next?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, Kate pointed out, we have over 300 full-time employees, over 600 seasonal employees. There's going to be turnover, but I'm not going to sit here and say that there wasn't more than I'd like to see. I think that we have to first acknowledge an issue or something we can improve upon, and I think that would like to see less. But I want to focus on the positive. As Kate mentioned, we have, I think, 10 openings right now. We are very fully staffed. I know there was some department head turnover, but let's look at who's in place right now. The future is very bright. Rich Normoyle brings over 30 years of experience in the private sector and several different townships as a building inspector. We created 2 new positions for plans examiners, added a new building inspector. The plans examiners are going to take the workload off the building inspector so they can do more inspecting and less of examining of plans. We hired a new administrative staff to help serve people at the counter. So it takes time for these effects to be shown. But the building department is you know, we're heading in the right direction. And I want to talk about the delay in that, but I wanted to earlier, but I'll wait, because hopefully that'll come back up. The planning director, Tina Lagaran, is an incredibly qualified person. Our town attorney went to private sector. Often you can make more money as an attorney in the private sector. Jake Turner is a fantastic town attorney. Brittany Toledano as the assistant town attorney is fantastic. Our housing director, Eric Shantz, retired, and we talk about leadership, and that's why people are leaving. I don't know what leadership you employ to stop somebody from moving out of town where he wants to move upstate. The leadership I employed, that we employed, was to create a position for him to return to the planning department in a remote position. Now he's, you know, a principal planner, really helping that department. And so, you know, we've been creative here. We've filled these positions. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's no big deal. We can have people resign, it's no problem. We want to have less of that for sure. But I think I don't think it's accurate to say that we haven't done anything or that things are in, you know, catastrophic situation. Again, it's going to take a little time to clean up things like the delay in the building department, but we are on our way. And it's a problem that I fully acknowledge and am addressing.
JP, how do you approach this issue of staffing?
Okay, so I will say, give credit where credit's due. They have brought salaries up. That's a good thing. But don't lose sight of that. Don't take your foot off the gas. Keep it going, because to keep up with the private sector, to keep up with our surrounding towns, to keep up with your competition, you need to keep on that. I worked for the village for 35 years, like I told you before, and I'm thankful that I did, quite frankly. You know, I'll tell you, I had a great experience there. And, you know, listen, the town may be within 10 people of, you know, fully staffed, but if it's anything to, and this has been going on a long time. This is not an immediate, it didn't happen in the last 5 years. They're traditionally understaffed. The town is traditionally understaffed. There's the maintenance. Look at our facilities. Go to one of your town buildings and look at it and tell me that you're like happy to be there. Go to the transfer station, the dump, whatever you want to call it. You're afraid you're going to stick to the floor, frankly. You know, where's the maintenance there? It's closed on Wednesdays. Get somebody in to clean it up. Make it look a little bit nicer. The building needs help. Go to the YMCA. You know, they put a lot of money into it. I get it. It's a constant battle. But when it was built for a bit of a different purpose. And go back to those days when the town was going to manage it. Remember that? And then they couldn't, right? So we had that too. So take some of those things into consideration. This is not a finger pointing at the people that are sitting here. This has gone on for many, many years. Fix it. Why can't we fix it? Come up with a way to make that just work better.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think JP has a point about, you know, infrastructure and there's work to do. I fully acknowledge that, but we also have to be fiscally responsible. You know, we can't just go out and fix everything all at once. There probably has been over many, many years, you know, not enough put into it. But I think our record with infrastructure is very, very strong. Look at the ball fields at Stephen Hand's Path that were recently put up. And I think Dave Lease deserves a lot of credit for this. He's been a leader on it. The roundabout at Stephen Hand's Path in Long Lane, the drainage projects that there, the paving in Montauk. We, you know, now have $200,000 more in our capital plan towards paving project. Two, you know, infrastructure projects I've worked on that were in the works for a long time. The Old Stone culvert, the Old Stone Highway Bridge and culvert there, that is finished. The Parsons Blacksmith Shop, the siding is being replaced. We are working on these things, but you can't do everything all at once. I also want to say, you know, Cate's worked a lot on, I don't know if this counts as sort of infrastructure, but taking care of our beaches. You know, the dune restoration of Ditch Plains, getting a grant, the replenishment so that people can enjoy their summer there. And I also want to say the work we've done, you know, I'm a big believer in our traditional industries. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased as a farmer, but also our fishing industry. We redid the dock, the fishing commercial dock at Star Island. We are doing the dock at Westlake Drive right now. We have invested a lot in our community. And you're right, over the years, there's a lot of work to do. We're not done yet. But again, it's just not accurate that we're not addressing that problem. We actively are, and I think we're spending money wisely and in the right places.
Just one.
Let me let Cate
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
jump in here.
Yeah, so Maintaining our buildings and our infrastructure is something that we're very focused on. And again, I will also give a shout out to David Lease and the extraordinary work he does with our fantastic Parks and Grounds staff and our building and maintenance staff. We handle how many people in the summer? How much garbage are we picking up on our beaches? How much infrastructure is impacted by being a wonderful place that people love to come to in the summer? You don't see the beaches falling apart. You don't see litter everywhere. You don't see ball fields closed. You don't see things falling apart because of the active role that we take in ensuring that our facilities are upgraded and open. We put in AI systems. We lead by example on electrifying all of our buildings. But when we talk about raising salaries and pouring more money into things, we need to remember where that money comes from. It's your pocket. And we have to be very careful of how we spend our money. Fiscal responsibility is key, not only for the awareness of how taxes impact working families and what we do with the money that we get in, but also to have that AAA Moody's rating, so we could borrow at the lowest rate possible for any municipality for our capital projects. So fiscal responsibility is always at the top of the page. And then under that is, well, how can we take what we have and improve it and still not raise taxes over and over again for our citizenry? So it's not my money. So I have to be careful how I handle other people's money, and I'm very conscious about that in my job every day. But again, I will say that when you think of the traffic, the tourism, the visitors that come to this town, we go to numbers, people talk about numbers like 100,000 people. And our town facilities are expanded. We upgrade our restrooms, we build bigger parking lots, and we improve our road infrastructure constantly to be able to handle that demand and to be able to take care of the year-round residents as well. So I really support the departments that we have work. I don't think things are falling apart. We're now investing quite a bit into sanitation to upgrade facilities at the Springs Fireplace. We all say dump, right? A recycling center, and upgrade that as well. The reason why we're closed on Wednesdays is because we're open on the weekend. So again, we cannot ask people to work 7 days a week or now increase salaries by increasing positions. And when you're doing that in the town, because of the union support that we have and because of civil service, you have to look ahead of not only the cost of that position as an employee, what it costs per year, but also what is retirement going to cost the town? What are the health benefits going to cost the town? And if we can do what we can do with what we have, we're better off doing it that way.
JP, I'm going to give you, just be brief if you could.
Absolutely. No, I just wanted to go back. I just want to go back to what Ian had said and about the facilities on Stephen Hance Path, which I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I'm also just going to just say for the record, too, that the 2 baseball fields that were there were paid for by the hospital, I believe, when they took the fields on Panago and moved them over to Stephen Hance Path. I'm sorry. That and the new turf field that they just put up with the lights, fantastic. Great job. We're well behind, like other towns, well behind. Travel west with your kids that play travel, anything, name it. We're well behind. And, you know, I think talking about how wonderful things are is great. I think that maybe sometimes people need to step out of their office and see their employees. I see them. I used to be in that position. You talk about working families. That's what I am. I raised my family here. I worked here. I just retired from here, you know, working as a working family. But I think you need to talk to some of your employees because I don't think they feel the same way.
So let's do a,
I just want to respond to that. I mean, we do talk to our employees. I go to 300 Panago, you know,
I'm
place
sure.
all the
Yeah.
time where our employees are and talk to them. When people resign or retire, you know, I invite them to talk to me to ask what I can do better, what we can do better as a board. Again, I don't think you're going to hear people say that, like, Ian doesn't talk to us.
No,
because
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
so
You know-
let me,
you know that.
I don't want to go too late tonight, so let's do a little bit of a lightning round, and we'll go Cate,
It's gonna be hard
JP, Ian. Just give me a couple of sentences on different topics. So let's talk about the senior center first. Big change
You
with
said
the
quick.
senior center.
You said quick.
Exciting.
Come on. You said quick.
So we can take a little extra time with that, but go ahead. Talk about the change, and we're going to start with you, Cate.
Okay. I'm thrilled about the change and increasing, turning it over from a senior center to a community center. Again, you can look at this in a very short lens. A lot of us have short-term memories, and I'll talk about that for the planning department in succession and how that department was the topic, but I agree that the building department really struggled this year, and I'll talk about those reasons later. But for the senior center, we started with one of the things that we have done and what we inherited as the current town board was tremendous amount of wonderful open space, but no municipal space. So when we first looked at the senior center, it was how to put, literally, how to take that existing space and make it functional for today's needs. Then, because of the absolute generosity of the Kabaz family, we got 7 acres. 7 acres we could look at for a senior center. Then we were able to purchase the adjacent 7 acres, totaling 14 acres. And now I look at this as a community center that will benefit everybody across the town and provide necessary services.
Okay, JP?
So with that, I'm glad they paused. I wish that and I don't know who at this table even knew, but I wish we had all known back in February, March, that the two architects that were the lead on this project were not getting along, or whatever you want to say. We found out in August, and now we're at a stop again. I think this is the 3rd iteration of the senior center, and I can't necessarily blame you guys. You weren't there for the whole thing, but you guys started the senior center when we started our transportation hub, and right around the same time, within I'll probably say a year, we're done. Just graduated our first 2-year vocational ed program for auto mechanics this past June. So we'll be graduating the 2nd class. And, I don't even know where we are at this point. You need to have some sort of, I don't know, there needs to be help somewhere, because this isn't working in its current state. I'm glad they paused and hit the button and are now going to pull more, thoughts into this process. It needs to be talked about deeply. The YMCA is a great conversation to have in this project that's coming up. Affordable housing is another. Senior housing, there's a lot of things. You could swap out some senior housing that you currently have and make other affordable housing. There's a lot of things that could be done, but what I would say is, let's get the senior center off the ground and maybe have some sort of a plan in place to build it out. When I talk about the transportation center, we did it in 8 years during COVID under budget. And I'll leave it there.
Ian?
Yeah, this is a good question, because I came on the board, fairly recently, and that plan was fairly developed. There were a few work sessions, and I participated, and, I had comments against or about the siding that was proposed. And when I was on the board, we scaled down the version. At the end of the day, I abstained from that vote, because I have a great deal of respect for the input that went into that and the work that was done before my time. But I'm an independent thinker. I'm not a rubber stamp, and I didn't support that plan, and I wasn't part of the process. I abstained because I also don't think he can start from scratch every time a new board member comes on. So I participated as much as I could to improve that plan, but I'm incredibly excited for the re-envisioning. One thing I heard about the senior center is that people wanted it to do more. I heard that and I listened, and so I'm very excited to talk about it as a community center, a place that not only, the seniors need a place to be. The current senior center needs an upgrade. They need a place to go, and they deserve that. But I also believe we can design a facility that can do much, much more, accommodate children, young adults, and all sorts of people. And so I think I look forward to this planning phase, and I can't wait to get to work.
Real quick.
So I do acknowledge that I think a mistake was made with the senior center, and that was focusing on a structure and not on the services that are provided. I appreciate a bus depot, but this was not just a senior center. It's housing the Human Services Department and the kitchen that provides over 24,000 meals a year for folks, both in the grab-and-go program and the senior program. Meals on Wheels is housed there. 12-step programs are housed there. The wellness programs, family league services, which help everyone across the town. The amount of referrals that our dedicated staff in Human Services makes is phenomenal. I don't think they deserve to work out of trailers. I don't think it's enough. So I supported the action to create a new senior center. Was I happy with the structure? No, I wasn't happy with the structure. But for me, what was more important was facilitating the function, the services that take place inside that structure.
Okay, let's talk about the building department. Go ahead.
Me?
Kate, yes. We'll do
Yes.
it- Go down the list there.
So the village did poach our chief building inspector. We did not have a year's notice on that. It was not a retirement, no excuse. Some staff left at the same time. We also haven't even analyzed when we passed the GFA, again, in fairness to people who already had plans, that didn't come into effect until July. And if you got plans submitted before that date, you were by the old standards. And that was something I also supported, also if you had something from the ZBA. What we did was was really a tourniquet. And it wasn't the optimum response, and I'm the first person to say that. We brought in outside consultants, we brought back former building inspectors, we offered overtime for staff. Was it enough? Not in my mind, it wasn't enough. And I think that looking at that department, and this is something that you see in the town, departments that have been run the same way for a very, very long time, because the heads of the department, and sometimes when you do have that second come up, the systems don't change. It's just run on how they were taught to run it before. But now we have an opportunity to totally rebuild that department.
Okay.
Now we're looking at not only the staff that we hired, the new staffing that we hired, the extra staffing that we hired, but how we can better manage the process by using a triage system. If it's a pool, if it's a deck, it shouldn't get behind the giant house with very complicated plans. We can look at how we can do that better, and we are.
JP, building department.
So I think I've said quite a bit about the building department already. I hope there's a plan going forward that you put a number 2 person in place. I know you got your number 1 person now. I think you should quickly try to get a number 2 person, because I don't know how long they'll last. They may last a while, but when somebody comes in with 30 years experience, that's wonderful. It's a good thing. But the clock's ticking. You know what I mean? Listen, I just retired with 35. I might be on the early side of that. I may be on the late side of that. I don't know. But I think you should have a number 2 and a 3 that are ready, because when you have a critical operation such as the building department, it just, you don't want people to lose out on mortgages. You don't want people to lose out on a sale of a house. You don't want somebody to just start building stuff because, hey, I can't get a permit, so let me just build it anyway. And no one's there to catch me either, because there's no one working in the department. Not no one, but it's a skeleton crew. It needs to be beefed up. It needs to be have a succession plan in place, and I'd just like to see some order there. That's where I will leave it.
Ian?
Yeah, look, I'm never gonna lie to you and say there's not a problem when there's a problem. And the lead time on building permits and COs, it's too long, for sure. And I think that staffing is part of that solution. And by the way, you can ask any number of people who reached out to me to complain about that fact, and I didn't shy away from the fact of the matter. I don't think it does anybody any good to, have a backlog of things that aren't being looked at. I think that we should be, thorough in our review, but also efficient. And so we need to shorten that timeline. I've spoken to Rich Normoyle recently, and I think 6 to 8 weeks is more of a reasonable timeline for a building permit for a complicated project. We're also working at streamlining, easy projects. So a deck or something very, very simple doesn't have to take that long, and that could be as short as a couple of weeks. I think staffing's a big part of it. JP's right, that you have to, it can't just be one person to solve everything, but we are backfilling. We've filled a lot of these positions. But beyond that, we also have to look at our rules. We have to make sure that our regulations are, again, we need regulations to protect us, to make sure that safety and is paramount, but we also need to make sure that we're efficient. And so I think that, Cate has been looking at how do we, what type of requirements do we have that maybe we can not require anymore, so that people are focused on the things that really, really matter. Also, the clerks talked about, coming in the 21st century, OpenGov is an online platform. I'll be honest, it's not perfect yet. It's going to take us time to perfect that, but it's going to make the system much more efficient as we go. So we have to address the staffing, yes, but also the systemic stuff, and we're actively doing that.
Before we go to closings, I want to give each of you a chance to briefly, please, talk about a topic we haven't addressed here so far that you think is important that we haven't talked about. Cate, you want to go first?
Yes, so there are 2 issues. I'm the liaison to Wainscott, and there are 2 issues that greatly impact the folks in that town. I'll bring up one of them. I don't know if somebody else wants to
Try to
bring
be
up
brief,
another.
please.
So I'll start with the gun club. And I can say to you that for me, this was never really about using guns, the national topic of guns and the Second Amendment. It has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with who's a member, who's not a member, nothing to do with it. It has to do with public safety and environmental remediation, just like every other facility that we own. So I looked at that from that same point of view. We know that they had a lease renewal option. The leases, back then, we inherited a 30-year-old lease. And now you can see the gun club rifle range being demolished. You can see that there's new safety plans put into place, environmental remediation put into place. And also what I'm looking at is how do we best use, does this smaller version of a gun club, which is sport for folks, how do we use, does that really need 97 acres of municipal land? Like I've talked about before, you know, we're so short on municipal land. And now we look at the prices of municipal land. Well, here's an opportunity to take a look at that, see what they really need, and what we could use the rest of those 97 acres for.
JP, what's a topic we haven't talked about here?
So I will give this one, which I know no one has really talked about, but I'm going to talk about the transfer of the 911 calls to the town, which I support wholeheartedly. I think once we went to cell phones, you know, when I started, there wasn't 911, didn't exist here. And it came in around 1994, 1995, and it was a handshake agreement. Hey, the village will take it. It made sense. It was landlines. It was much simpler. Then over time it evolved and cell phones became part of it. And, you know, probably at that point it probably should have shifted over to the town. It didn't for whatever reason there is. But I think if you read through this year's budget, in the message in the budget, they talk about 3 police officers being added, I think 2 Marine Patrol officers being added, and 2 Parks Department employees being added. But there was also 4 dispatchers added. The year before was 14 dispatchers. This year's 18. I'm going to be totally honest with you, because where they're going with some fire and EMS dispatching that they're doing, there's some redundancy in services. There's programs that the village has done for years. They already own the programs, they already pay for them, and the town's buying them. So we got 2, you know, sort of entities doing the same thing, which is a little bit redundant in my opinion. And those 4 positions are about $800,000. They're not $800,000 this year, but you have to remember they come back every year, and we talk about, you know, medical benefits, we talk about their union wage, we talk about retirement. I know the math because that's what I did. I managed the villages, and it was, I think it was $205,000 was the number that we sort of came up with is what they cost each. So that's an $800,000 addition that I just, you know, it's also the liability, the training, the responsibility that goes along with it. And that is something I know very, very well. I've answered the phone. I've managed people that answer the phone. And I think it's something that needs to really be thought about going forward.
Okay. Ian?
Yeah, well, just to respond to JP really quickly, nobody wanted to take that over. For a long time, the town, you know, paid for infrastructure. The village took the calls. We were, you know, given a bill, a really big bill. And again, we have to represent the taxpayers, and you know, I have great faith in Chief Sarlo, who said that we can handle this and we can do it for less money. So it wasn't that we wanted to do that. I think that I had no problem with the previous, you know, arrangement, but I have a great deal of faith in our leadership, and we were put in a position, and again, we have to represent our taxpayers. In terms of another issue that we have not addressed, I think, is transportation. I think we give a lot of money to the MTA. I'm not taking the subway a lot. You know, I think we need to get more money back from the MTA, and I talk about affordable housing. That's not going to solve the entire problem of you know, it's not going to stop the trade parade. We're not going to have everybody here. And so we need to do better. The commuter train has been great, but we need more of that. That's part of our solution. I also just want to say, I'm going to give 2 things, but I haven't used that many words yet. I also just want to say, philosophically, I think it's also important that whatever we do, you know, there's a lot of money out here, and sometimes we're trying to protect against a very large business coming and maybe taking advantage of our community. I think we need to make sure that our regulations don't accidentally hurt the, you know, the individual homeowner or the small business, and I think that type of balance is, I don't know if we've talked enough about that, but it's something I take, you know, very, very seriously, and has to be in the front of all of our minds.
Okay. So let's go to closings, 2 minutes each, and we'll start with Cate.
Thank you. Once again, I want to thank the Express Group and LTV for hosting this forum. I really enjoy these conversations, and this is also how I like to work in my job. I like to collaborate. I like to bring people together, different ideas at the table, and listen to everybody, and then come to solutions. That's the joy of community service, and I'm dedicated to our community, to protecting what we love, to preserving what we need, and to make sure that there's enough for the next generation of folks to be able to use. I think that's what my responsibility is. I support our employees. I certainly support our first responders. I know that they're capable, they're experienced, and they're dedicated to their jobs as well, just like many of our town staff. Do we have issues? Of course we do. Do we have problems that we need to address? Of course we do. So I'm looking to expand childcare in East Hampton. Folks shouldn't have to only drive to Montauk or get on a waiting list at Eleanor's Whitmore's to be able to go to work when we live in a town where both folks have to work. They should be able to have it closer and more accessible, and for younger children. I'm also looking at the impacts of the outside investors coming to our town, buying up our housing stock, strictly for profit, for short-term rentals. That's impacting our town greatly, and I've just begun a dialogue on that. And just like I begin every dialogue, I presented it to the town and the town board and asked for thoughts, asked for solutions, asked for your ideas, and I'm meeting with people from Montauk to Wainscott who have different points of view on this issue. So I'm asking for your vote so together that we can continue to preserve and protect everything that we love. Thank you.
J.P. Foster.
Okay, so thank you again to the Express News Group. Hopefully I got that right.
There you go.
LTV, everybody that showed up here today. I do school board meetings, I host them regular, and we get 2 or 3 people to come, go to your school board meetings, take place in every meeting you can. Thank you to the people that supported me. Thanks for the people that maybe don't support me but listen to me. I appreciate it. Thank you to, I don't like to use the word opponents, but thank you to my opponents, because they're here because they care. I'm here because I care. I'll say more because I'm here. But anyway, so putting it to you this way, I spent 35 years in public service since I basically graduated school, okay? I learned a lot along the way. I've served on several boards, which taught me a lot. People in this room have taught me a lot. We've had some spirited debates about different things over the years, and I want to continue that. I love my community. I'm not necessarily looking for a job, but if that's what it is, that's fine. And I'm quite sure after the campaign trail, it's definitely a job. I ask for your vote because I will bring my leadership skills. I will bring my experience. I will bring my ability to collaborate. I will tell you, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and I think that kind of sums it up. I'm asking for your vote on November 4th, and thank you very much.
Thanks, J.P. Ian.
Yeah, I guess it pays that I was rude and forgot to thank everybody because I didn't have to say the name
didn't
wrong. But
notice.
thank
We
you
didn't
to the Express News Group and LTV. I love everything that LTV does. Yeah, I just want to say that again, you know, I love this town, I love this community, and I love this job, and I think I'm the right person for it. I've realized that maybe I'm not good at politics, but I think I am good at governing, and I think I am good at solving problems. I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to tell you something that's not true. I'm always going to listen. I'm going to bring my own ideas, even if they're not fully, you know, out there. I'm going to put them out there, put myself out there, and then change my mind when somebody has a better one. I'm going to follow good ideas wherever they come from. I think that's my record. In 14 years of government service, I think I've shown to be able to, the ability to find common sense, practical solutions, both in the planning board and the town board. So I know how to govern, but I also as a small business owner and a farmer, I also know how hard things are and how you don't want to, you know, have hurdles. And I think that I am the person to bring that balance towards, you know, strong governance, but also making sure that we understand the pressures that, you know, ordinary people and small businesses in our community face. So, you know, I ask for your vote. Like I said, this job has been the honor of my lifetime, and I'm ready to do a whole lot more.
So we left a lot of issues on the table. I will tell you, I lobbied really hard for a 6-hour debate. And we were going to lock the doors.
With a little
We were
dinner
going to
break.
lock
We could
the
do it.
doors,
With a little
but
break.
Josh Gladstone said something about illegal imprisonment or something like that.
It hasn't been 6 hours?
So we didn't do 6 hours, but
He really was against that.
I think we covered quite a bit of ground tonight. if you'll all join me in a round of applause for our candidates for being here tonight. Thank you to all of you for showing up here, which is terrific. Thank you to LTV for everything they did to partner with us for this, and make sure you vote. Thank you. Quite welcome. Early voting starts October 25th, and election day is November 4th, right? Yeah. Second, 4th? So-
Fourth, I think it's fourth.
Fourth,
I think.
okay, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, well.
Thank you very much.
Still
Have a good
November
night.
second, I think early.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very, hey, thank you, absolutely, of course. Kate,
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it.